Good morning, traders and investors. You're tuned into pre-market prep with StockOdds on this Monday. It's a new month and we have lots to cover. But first, let's take a quick check with the futures going into the charts here. S&P is currently down by about 0.1% at 51.39 in the futures. Dollar also down 0.1% at 103.69. Bonds down about 0.5% at 119.15. Of course, we have Powell's comments coming on Wednesday, so we'll see what that has in store for for the dollar and bonds and treasuries and rates and all that good stuff. Crude down 0.8% at 79.34. Gold up 1.1% at 21.19. Silver up almost 2.5% at 23.70, and Bitcoin up 6% at 66,663. Oh, we almost got all sixes there. But that's Bitcoin ripping higher. And now we get to talk to Rob. Rob, how are you doing this Monday?
Too bad, thanks. Yeah, it's sometimes there is the comedy of numbers, and sometimes you can't make this stuff up. Like, for example, the year
Mm-hmm.
after 9/11, both the near-term contract and the I think the December contract of the futures there closed at 9/11. That was the following year, almost like in
Oh,
in
really?
memory. No, but you can't even plan that stuff. It's just like it happens. It's part of I think it's all part of the hive sentience. It's part of the collective Borg of market participants, and that's why these things happen, strange things.
Yes,
But
exactly.
yeah, so it's an exciting day in crypto land, and also and that's playing over into the stock market.
It
So
is.
I
We've
just
got
wanted to rattle
chips.
off a couple things here. Can I share my screen?
Sure.
Is that right?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Okay. All right. I'm going to share this here. It's just the map of the market from Invis here.
Yep.
So is that clear or is it coming through okay? Yeah, it seems
Yep.
to be. Okay.
Yep.
So that's the landscape today. We've often had a very sort of speckled situation. There are the few days where just it's a sea of green or a sea of red, but most of the time it's speckled like this. But I always have to question traders, and obviously I deal with traders, manage risk, and I've been doing this for a long time. But I always have to question the logic and the choices that go behind things. So you really need a thesis for why you do things, whether it's an investment thesis for the long term or whether it's a short term. You have to first come up with your thesis. What is it? What do you believe? So what bothers me all the time is shorting the tip of the spear. So rather than talk about the obvious, I'll point out Lilly, for example. Now, Lilly is a leader in a certain tip of the spear area, and that's the weight loss drugs. Now, there are others parroting or trying to catch up or whatever, but Lilly's had pretty good gains over the last year, specifically on that topic. You know, Costco is another example. I mean, I I tried to go to Costco yesterday.
Oh, on a
Uh,
Sunday.
yeah, well, I think part of the problem was people probably got their checks, their rebate checks, and so everybody was out shopping or something. But like, I gave up. Forget it. You can't even get a parking spot, let alone get in and out of the parking lot.
Yep.
So that I have better things to do than spend hours in Costco. So my point though is that in terms of retailing, and especially at more of a wholesale level and so on, there's a big difference between Costco and Target or even any of these that are in the group, or even Walmart. Now, Walmart's done a 3-for-1, and we see some changes in the Dow related to its decision there. We had Amazon added to the Dow, and Walgreens Food Alliance kicked out, right? So there's been some changes in the Dow, but like again, tip of the spear in terms of retailing. And then of course we move over to Amazon, which I just had a heart-to-heart chat with a trader the other day about Amazon. You know, I was I started trading in 1992. I think Amazon came into existence in 94, if I'm not mistaken. And 1998, I opened my bright office in Seattle. And for some reason, traders wanted to jump all over Amazon already in 1998. And so,
As a short or long?
well, both ways didn't
Both
matter what
ways.
was going on. They were always wrong on it. But but it was a good learning curve. It would be we were on this 32nd floor of a bank building in Seattle on Second and Madison, and it would be like people would go down for a smoke and put positions on before they did or something. I go, well, that's the most expensive smoke you ever had in your life. You come
No
back,
kidding.
you know, you lose 10 grand or make 10 grand. So mostly the lose part. But anyway, so I've seen the whole movie with Amazon, and I can say from my perspective that there were many years where it was questionable whether it would make it, because again, it was the tip of the spear in this thing, and now everybody wants to use it as well. Amazon did it. We can do it too. But in terms of its PE and stuff, people were betting on Amazon when it was just losses, 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 and there was no E with the P or no P with the E. There was nothing to go on. It was just speculation, and so it's obviously still around and proven itself over time. And like I mentioned in the podcast on Sunday, it's like instead of other gift cards, people give Amazon gift cards now. Instead of going to
Hmm.
the store, they're ordering from Amazon much of the time. So your Amazon trucks, they're around your block all the time, right? In my
Oh yeah.
area where I live, the same guy, he doesn't leave the area all day. He's here all day. I can see him, to walk the dog in the morning or the afternoon. Same guy, I see him all the time. He's everywhere. So it's really changed the landscape. And so why short the tip of the spear there, right? Now
Right. Yeah.
With Tesla, you have a little different situation in that you have really big moves to the upside, like we had on Friday, and then you have really big moves to the downside. So you have a lot of volatility. So it becomes more of a trading instrument. It has a lot more competition coming down the pike and also other challenges. So it might not be that tip of the spear anymore. So it's a little different, right? There was a time where I could say the same thing, and that is it's firstly a battery company. Secondly, it's a you know car
Automotive
company, maybe
manufacturer. Yeah.
third, and it's a charging station company too, and
Hmm.
it's got other aspects. So but it's got to have more volatility, and it's not in that same position that it was in the massive growth phase. Now people are questioning whether they even want an EV. That go back to the hybrid model might be more sustainable. So there's a lot at play here. You have 50 different news releases a day on Tesla, so it's a lot of
Yeah.
information to consume, right? um, there was a point where Google was the tip of the spear, and that's changed dramatically, and it's facing a lot of competition and missteps in the AI space specifically. So a little different situation there. There has been moments in time on Apple where it's been the tip of the spear, but largely what I see in the trading community is people leaning on that as their hedge, and then buying other stuff that have more growth potential. Now we come to the NVIDIAs of the world, right? Like why would you want to get in front of these type of freight trains. And when I look back at the history of working with traders, if I've lost traders over the years, it's usually because of the short side. And it's usually because there is no investment or trading thesis that's been developed. And it's more like, just because it's gone up, I'm going to short it. Or just
Right.
because there's some other
They think they see
stories.
weakness.
They think they see weakness. I mentioned that, in the podcast. It's like it's easier to observe weakness because it's sort of the evaporation of liquidity. It's the evaporation of bid or whatever, or you're breaking a support level. And so it's easy to do that. I mean, a lot of people, they chase things that are strong and then they start to roll over and break something and they want to pile in the shorts, not realizing that, that's a fairly short-lived pullback, and it's probably hit its linear regression line. It's probably hit its moving averages. It's probably, so I advise people to take all their charts and actually turn it on its side. Like, if you see here's the low, here's the high. Well, take your monitor and turn it this way.
So so it's
some of
just
you,
going back
some
and
of you,
forth.
well, seriously, like I've told people, some of you need to change your red and green candles to some other color, or no color. Like, forget about colors because you're impacted by red and green. Trust me. Okay, so you need to change that. Change your colors on your candlesticks to, some pastel colors of some sort, all mixed up, whatever, but not stark red and stark green because you're too influenced by it. Next thing, take your monitor and turn your charts to the side so that you can actually see, that it's oscillating in a channel, and it's not really significant weakness. So if you go
Yeah.
back and look at all of your shorts that you got run over on, ask yourself the question: what was your thesis? What was your, you know, evidence strategy? What was your edge? I'm using the word thesis a little bit because we always talk about edges. So I'm just saying, like, if you were going to write a paper in university, you would, develop a thesis and then you would write around that. Or if you want to tackle any topic, whether it's, you know,
Well, yeah, you develop a trading thesis, NVIDIA is gonna rule the AI space, so you go
well,
along in
here's
it.
here's the thing. I mean, one day NVIDIA could fall from its lofty heights. Why? Because, it's all based on the CUDA core and so on.
Mm-hmm.
It all it takes is a real, hey, listen, do do you use your VHS anymore? Stick your cassette video in there or whatever. I mean, things
Nope.
change, right? Blu-ray was supposed to be the big thing. Do you use Blu-ray anymore? I mean, like, Netflix replaced Blockbuster, right? I mean,
Right.
we've seen this
So,
movie. We've seen this movie before. So right now, this is a hardware play, and so many have. I mean, they can't even supply all the orders. So this is a hardware play, right?
mhm.
But will it always be that way? Maybe not. But why not wait till it's run its course?
Yep.
Just like Tesla has more competition it probably should be concerned about now than it did a few years ago. Maybe that will happen to NVIDIA on the hardware side, and people can come up with far less power hungry chips that are specialized in AI space instead of using something that maybe wasn't originally designed for the AI space. Maybe, I mean, the arguments are both ways, but we've seen the NVIDIA cards in the gaming area, self-driving cars. We've seen them in mining, GPU mining. I bought
Mhm.
cards myself for GPU mining. We've seen it in now the AI space. In fact, a lot of original GPU miners that I was in relationship with actually switched over to some form of AI and machine learning with their servers and stuff like that. So those cards have definitely been useful. But are they power hungry? Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Um,
Well,
do
and
they
in each of
generate a
those
lot of heat?
cases,
Absolutely.
yeah, and in each of those cases as well, they've benefited from, their CUDA technology.
But true. I'm just saying that it's all built around that protocol, right? And that code. So can it be changed? Yes. Are there people nipping at their heels? Are there competitors rethinking this? Of course. So I'm just saying that you can be a darling of the Dow today, but might not be tomorrow. You can be the tip of the spear today, but you might not be tomorrow. But why pick battles that you don't have a thesis for? And why pick battles just because something went up? Like there's so
Hmm.
many other things you can do instead of getting involved in that. So it just frustrates me to constantly deal with. I mean, we've got a lot of, don't get me wrong, we got a lot of great traders and probably some of the best that I've ever witnessed, but we also have those that I have to always work on with risk control. And it always centers around shorting something because the price went up, as if it has to come back down. I guess they get it from that song. What goes up must come down. What must rise must fall. Right? So maybe they
Something
get
like
it,
that. Well,
maybe they get it from that. I don't know. But it's just like you gotta know why you're in something, and you can't just listen to some segment of the market news or information that's sort of negative. You got to look at the whole picture, right? Put it all together. So
yeah.
anyway, I know you had other stuff on the docket for today,
Well,
but
yes, and actually we have a quick question from Garen. I hope I'm saying that right. So if the SPY takes a breather with all the large caps like Apple, Microsoft, Google, not rallying as much as they would, do the mid caps and small caps have a chance to outperform? Like, is there going to be some rotation there?
that's a really good question. And one thing you can monitor is the RSP, which is an equal weight S&P 500 versus the SPY, which is market cap weighted. And so the RSP will give you that visibility into the mid cap space. And you kind of see this syncopation a bit where you got that leadership in the SPY, and then in RSPs lagging, and then sort of the next day as the SPY pulls back, you see the RSP performing better. So there's a sort of that catch up with some of the mid cap and small cap. So it could even be a down day on the Nasdaq and on the S&P 500, and Russell could still kick in and do better. Um, so you know that's something to watch anyway. Also watch your value versus growth ETFs for some perspective. Even the simple diamond versus what's happening in the Qs is a good perspective. To see whether it's a risk on or risk off day. But yeah, it's hard to predict exactly when the small cap or mid cap will kick in. Just note that there is often this sort of me too attitude where if the major indices have had significant move and the small caps were lagging, that there'll come a point where they want to kick in, and they'll surprise you on those days where maybe you even have an inside day on the SPY or the Nasdaq, and the Russell will really kick in. So you have to be ready for that.
Okay.
And IWM is not a great example of a hedging instrument for the Russell either, just because it's so influenced by any one stock that's on a tear. uh, and because again, it's market cap weighted, and just seems to have these problems. We can go back to the AMC days, or the GME GameStop GME days. things went out of control with the IWM just because of the market cap change.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. No kidding. With that big run.
So anyway,
Okay.
before we move on, just respect what's happening and understand why it might be happening, and pick your battles wisely. Like I said, you know, I'm not an advisor, but just like Apple against other ideas or Google against other ideas, can be a lot more rewarding than trying to say, well, it's time for NVIDIA to roll over now, so I'm going to short the heck out of it, right? And hey, I'm not promoting NVIDIA. I'm just saying, let's recognize, you know, what's going on in the consumer sentiment. It'll be the same for Bitcoin or whatever. Like it could run ahead of the halving event, and then, which is in April, and everybody's missed the boat, let's say. And then suddenly we get into April and they're like, oh no, I can't take it anymore. I mean, I'm gonna go get my credit card fired up and buy some Bitcoin. And no sooner do they do that it has its pullback, right? Um, Things are like that.
Yep.
People miss the boat,
Definitely.
and
It's
they're
all
and
it's
you
all
know there's
about
a lot
buying
that have
buying the
missed the boat.
rumors, selling the news.
Yeah, and there's a lot that have missed the boat in this Nvidia area and other related. It just doesn't pay to be a hero trying to short these things. And even like I said, I started with Lilly, and same thing, right? Okay. Um,
Yep.
so there is some replacements happening. What day is this? March 18th coming up. So we've got super microcomputer. I'll let you share your
Yes.
screen if you want. Super microcomputer is replacing. Hey, so you know what? This isn't your daddy's market anymore. Whirlpool, that good old Whirlpool is out, and super microcomputer is in.
Exactly. Yeah. Well,
Actually,
well,
need
yeah,
a
I
machine anymore, really. I mean, all you need is a supercomputer and you're fine.
there you go. Yeah, and so actually the news hit Friday, and we can see after hours here. This, by the way, this top chart is a 15-minute chart. Then we got daily on bottom left, monthly on bottom right. We can see that the hockey stick on the monthly with Super Micro here. But the news hit that it was going to be added to the S&P 500 after hours on Friday. I happened to buy some. It hit its all-time highs, exceeded them, and then came back. And so I said, "Well, that's it. I sold. I got in. I got in after hours Friday, and now." As traders, even though you made money, it was a good trade. To see it go up again, you just go like, oh, I missed the the next move. But I mean,
And that,
as you've worked with,
Josh, that can be
yeah.
okay, because like
Hmm.
our job as traders is to take a slice, not to pick the absolute bottom and the absolute top. That's not our job description, that we have to pick the top and the bottom, right? We're here to take slices, and not the whole loaf all the time. So you made money, you bought it on that, and what I would add to that is just remember that a lot of stuff that comes out on Friday, it won't actually really be digested by a lot of investors that might want to be more than just day traders repositioning until the weekend. I mean, they might read, Wall
Yep.
Street Journal, they might read Barron's, or whatever they read, whatever they look up, and especially some of the old timers that have, money and might want to reallocate. So you with that kind of news, you owe it to yourself to see what's up, after the weekend, just because that's usually when the deployment of capital would happen. So put a note in that, like when you journal, go, here's what I did, and was that good or bad or whatever, indifferent, and then what could I've done better, or what's other information that I could add to this, and so just make a note in your journal about Friday trades,
Uh,
possibly wanting to keep that over into a Monday if it's got a catalyst behind it that would draw in bigger money than the following week.
yep. That's exactly what I had in mind, but I was too excited.
And it's, hey,
I,
listen, it's okay, give
yeah.
yourself permission to do that. And you made money,
Mhm.
right? So it's
Yeah.
good.
And just keeping
And
on
then we
the,
have Decker's replacing Zion, right?
oh, yeah, yeah,
So
that's
Deck,
right. Yeah, they're up about 3% on the day compared to SMCI's about 25% on the day. So the theme of AI and chips still plays out a little bit more. But
more than shoes and clothing. Yes, okay.
yeah, exactly. We're off the whirlpool. It's yeah, like you said, not your dad's stock
Yeah, well,
market, but
banking's passe, Zion's out, so goodbye. And
yeah,
and then in
exactly.
the on same day S&P 100, we've got Intuit replacing boring old utility EXC. So you might want to pull INTU up, INTU. So
Intel
that's
or Intuit?
no Intuit, INTU, right?
Yeah.
So that's replacing EXC in the 100, S&P 100.
Okay.
So yeah, so that we get these changes periodically, could be for various a variety of reasons, but always pay attention to what's being changed. And as Josh did, there are trades you can do before the event. You know, the market is some may have already been informed, and you might have seen some movement ahead of it. And then when the news hits, if it's an event sometime in the future, it often moves, and it not doesn't necessarily move the day of or the day after the event. Okay.
Exactly. And actually, keeping on the chips subject here, talking about machine learning as well. I actually don't think I've told you this yet, but I put a pair on NVIDIA and AMD, NVIDIA
Okay.
long, AMD short, and the thesis there was essentially centered around the CUDA technology there, just because it's so much easier for developers and of all these AI and machine learning applications to use. They're going to be using NVIDIA hardware more so than AMD until AMD either comes out with a similar technology or adapts CUDA for some reason. But even then, NVIDIA would get some licensing deal, perhaps. But uh, you also shared a image with me. I was just pulling that up here about what sectors are using AI. So I was wondering if you could just walk us through your thoughts on that.
Well, we're seeing a lot in the banking area and finance. It's being used heavily. Um, we can see in the retailing area that in marketing it is being used, but there's still lots more of adoption that could be happening there. So I would just, let's see which areas could grow yet, which are leading and which are lagging. But it's important to think about the tailwinds for the market. And so what I would look at is, okay, what percentage of the S&P 500 are these sectors or industries? Like we know that banking, for example, is in the S&P 500, but not so much in NASDAQ 100, right?
Right?
So understand where the applications are for what's the end result? Shareholder benefit from more domination in their industry and lowering costs, increasing margins, things like this. So then initially there can be a spend on programmers and developers and stuff like that, but as time goes on, it should hit the bottom line. So know what companies could be affected, and in what industries and what sectors, and what that makeup is of the S&P 500. So, for example, energy is a very small, uh, weight in the S&P 500, right? Compared to technology or banking and things like that.
Yeah.
Um, just to roll back to the NVIDIA AMD pair that you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
So the PE on the trailing PE on NVIDIA is 71.54 and the forward PE is 28.87. Well, why in this day am I bringing up fundamentals? Because there is still institutions that deploy capital. And, even going back to Warren Buffett, he came into Apple, later on. There was a lot of earlier adopters, right? And and the same thing can happen even with the most prudent type fundamental investors. They can still join a party late if they see that Amazon is cheaper, for example, than the other retailers on a fundamental basis. If they see, compared to like the EPS and the cash flow and everything of all the others. So looking at return on assets, return on equity, return on investment, that kind of stuff. So NVIDIA is still got very low debt, 0.26, and its forward PE is 28.87. And its EPS this year, um, we're looking at 11.94 per share. So let's just take a look at AMD here. And AMD's PE is 397.67. So for every dollar of earnings, you're really paying up for that. Its forward PE is 37.71. Now it also has lower debt than Nvidia, but EPS is only 52 cents per share on a trailing 12 months. So you're like, I don't know who these people are that come out and want to promote AMD as such an incredible buy compared to Nvidia. Probably just because Nvidia has run and they think that AMD, is owed to run too. But you've done the right thing with your thesis, and that is identify how appropriate for the current, you know,
Theme.
developing bubble that we're in, right? I mean, everybody says that where the bubble's fully formed, and I don't know that. I mean, I don't think so, but
I don't
um,
think so either. Yep.
so it's like, well, the bubble will be there one day, and the tulip bulbs will be worth 100,000 a bulb at that point, and
The original
then
bubble.
the hot weather will kill the tulips, and it'll roll over and it'll be worthless. So that day hasn't come yet, though, right? And so people are playing this. Well, AMD, it's look at the channel that it was in, and it's way behind. So uh, you pull the AMD chart up if you want.
Yep.
It's way behind. Nvidia. Look at it. So it has to run too. Well, it doesn't, because it might not be benefiting from the same things that Nvidia is. It might not be positioned to benefit. Uh, and so it's a sympathy trade, but it might not be anything more than that. And its fundamentals are, you know, and I'm not an analyst and I'm not an advisor, but the fundamentals to me, if you just go side by side, NVIDIA is still a better value to me personally on a fundamental basis than AMD is. So this is how you have to, put things together. You need to develop in the StockOdds Learning Academy. Do we have a template for how to compare two stocks in a pair? I can't recall. You need like a template where you can say, put all your components in and really compare them, because that's what it is. It's relationship based trading. And you need a reason to be in the long side and you need a reason to be in the short side. And you don't want your short side to be something that you can really get run over on. And you don't want your short side to be a takeover target. So it has to have, enough of a market cap that it's going to thwart any takeover. You got to be, careful on that. But we can look in that and see if there's a way so that people can actually compare two stocks appropriately and develop a real good trading plan for the pair. So in pair trading, it's a product of, yes, that return on investment, but it's also what kind of trading action can you get and where do you want to go in and out at what levels of the spread relationship. So it's kind of a multi-tranche, it's a production along with return. I've never seen it really work out that well when somebody just says, I'm going to invest in the pair and just not do anything else. I'm just going to put the one position on and leave it. I find that it's much better to actually have some trading aspect to it as well, so that you're earning money from the pair while you're waiting for it to do what you want it to do.
Right.
And the other thing is, typically, people always do it wrong, where they short the tip of the spear just because it's gone up the most price wise, and they buy the lagger that's hasn't gone. And there could be a really good reason why that situation exists. So price alone or performance alone is not the number one reason to take a long or a short. There has to be more to it. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I think,
So, I mean, this week we've got, hey, Powell's testifying
yep,
before Congress on Wednesday and Thursday. This is big, just
yep,
because this is the semi-annual testimony. So this is big, Wednesday and Thursday, and then we got the Friday jobs report. Okay, so if you're looking at the calendar, that's those are elements to definitely watch. Okay.
yeah, exactly. Expect a bit of volatility maybe on Wednesday when once that
It's
conference
an important.
starts.
I mean, you can see how much the market moves on the Q&A period after the FOMC announcements on interest rates. Well, a testimony to Congress is also a market mover to the same degree. It can either, and it can be like 15 minutes, rallying, and then so he says something else, and then 15 minutes selling off. It can be that too. So it doesn't have to be only one direction. Okay.
Yep, exactly. All right. Well, thanks
All right.
again,
I'll
Rob,
bounce.
for joining
Okay.
us.
Thanks again.
we'll we'll see you all again next week, and I'll just do a quick check-in with the futures here. S&P's a little closer to flat on the day now, currently at 51.42 in the futures. Thanks again for tuning in, everyone, and the show will be a little bit later next week, but we'll come back and see how Powell's comments affected the market. So we'll see you all next week.